Okay, as everyone gets settled down, I think I'm going to maybe just start with a quick introduction of the panel and myself as the moderator. And thank you for hosting us, MISC Foundation's Youth Majlis. We're very excited to be here today to talk about accelerating youth impact on the SDGs. Uh, we have about 7.5 years left to achieve the SDGs by 2030. Uh, Now more than ever, climate action is urgent and needed. And the youth, as custodians of our planet, as future leaders, as future business leaders, uh, have an important and critical role to play. Today's panel brings together a diverse group of people and some business leaders, thought leaders, and climate leaders. Apart from myself, I'm no leader, but I will try and guide this discussion to help us understand how the youth can play an active role in achieving the SDGs and impact for them. So why don't we start with a quick round of introductions? Maybe we start with you, Catherine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, hi everyone, I'm Kathy Mulligan. I'm a professor of computer science and I'm the project fellow for the World Economic Forum's Crypto Impact and Sustainability Accelerator. And I spent the last sort of 15 to 20 years looking at how we can apply digital technologies to create sustainability and social good. And obviously through my day job, I do a lot of engagement with young people, but I'm really interested and excited about this panel because I think there's a lot more that we should be doing to engage youth. And you are very much a leader, so don't put yourself down.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Over
Hi,
to you.
I'm Jonathan Adashek. I'm the Senior Vice President for Marketing and Communications at IBM. I also lead all of our ESG work and have a long background in sustainability and all the issues we're talking about right now.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah, and my name is Peter Thompson. I'm the UN Special Envoy for the Ocean. As such, my remit is to drive SDG 14, the ocean goal to conserve and sustainably use the resources of the planet. And I was young once, about 50 or 60 years ago. So, but I do remember what it was like. I have 4 grandchildren who also tell me what it.
Super. Thank you so much. For those of you that don't know my name, because I realized I didn't say it, I'm Karan Kumar. I'm a global shaper from Mumbai, India, and I'm also a program manager with a Dutch philanthropic foundation focused on climate and inequality. I think I want to start by just asking each of you to outline what you feel the role of the youth is in achieving the SDGs, from your own perspectives, of course. Each of you have different areas of expertise, and at some level, I think recognizing that the SDGs, to achieve the SDGs, we need to work at a systems level. We need to understand ways in which there are interconnections of everything that we do. Tech meets oceans, meets climate, meets agriculture, various other things. How do we start acknowledging that, and where do you see the youth playing a role in helping achieve that systems level transformation for the SDGs? Maybe we'll
Well,
start with you.
nice simple question to start with. Yeah. So,
Always.
I think what we need to think about, in depth, is how do we engage people across all ages. I think what we see is a lot of ageism and a lot of youthism. Right. There seems to be. We need to find a way to bring these together because what we're facing as a planet are what I would classify as wicked problems, and those wicked problems need new approaches. They need very interdisciplinary approaches, and we can't just all sit in our silos anymore. So how do we get the youth engaged? So I've been a little bit concerned with some of the ways that I see us progressing our education system, at least in my country, the countries I'm active in the sense that it's still quite patronising. It's still very much me teaching them, and occasionally I'm standing and I'm lecturing and I'm kind of thinking, I'm not sure that anything I'm teaching you is going to be of any use to you in your real life. In computer science, you'll be able to build great code, but there's no guarantee our planet is going to exist for you to write that code in. So I think a greater level of humility from the older people, and a little bit less. You're just old fogies and don't know what you're talking about. So I think we've got to find the common ground, but it is imperative because the youth are the people who own these problems, and actually we're giving you all of the problems to solve, so it's our duty to include you in the solution.
Thank you. And that's perhaps a good segue, and maybe Jonathan, if I can add a lens to this, as Kathy also just said, the sort of idea of us sort of teaching, and well, us, I'm considering myself as part of the non-youth category, but the idea of sort of older people sort of, telling younger people what they can do, how they can do it. I think there is a role though where that does make a difference, and that I think is in terms of skilling, right? And the skills you can sort of teach young people and give to them. So can you tell us more about what your sort of views are on that?
Yeah, for us at IBM, skills is a huge, huge push. And we created a program years ago called PTech. And it recognized that youth were not necessarily getting the skills they needed or the degrees they needed to go into jobs after their education. And it was a free program that allowed you to go from high school straight into getting a 2-year degree, and then getting opportunities. It was good, and it's still a good program and it exists, but we also, as things have evolved, we recognized we needed to do something broader. And as we do something broader, we've been looking also at how do we skill more broadly. And so we've committed to skilling 30 million people by 2030. And a lot of that opportunity to skill is available for free online, and it is working with partners. This is not just Big Blue, who a lot of people see as old and stodgy, right? This is not just us talking down. This is us working with partners around the world to make sure that youth and people who need the opportunities have access. But then the next step to it, as we look at skilling, is also about creating the opportunities. Because if you have the skills but you can't get the opportunity, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. And so it's a big change, and that's a big focus that we're on right now.
And for some of the young people I see in the audience, and for myself, where will one find such open access tools that you mentioned?
Very simple, on our website as a starting point.
Cool.
But I also was just sitting with one of the senior executives from Manpower, one of the leading staffing firms in the world, just before this, coming over here. And she said, just anybody could go and Google.
Yeah.
And just type in what you're interested in, and you will find cyber skills or coding skills or AI or any of these sorts of things that are available that will be where the opportunities are in the future, because there's in our view, a massive demographic shift in what's going on with the workforce, and having those opportunities and having people get skills easier to take advantage of them is huge.
Super, thank you. And then perhaps shifting gears a little bit onto the sort of role that the youth play, and how sort of you see the youth engaging in achieving some of the more climate-oriented sustainable development goals. I think it's important to also think of the perspectives of ways in which we empower ourselves with information, ways in which we are also given opportunity, as Jonathan also said. And where do you see such opportunity being created?
Well, firstly, just reacting to what the other speakers have said, I certainly don't feel the divisions that you were talking about, ageism and so on. Look, I feel most of us live in a continuity, right? My parents both passed away now long ago, but I live what they expected of me in terms of standards. Likewise, my children, my grandchildren, I do what I do for them, basically, and my kids have grown up, so I'm really doing it for my grandchildren. And when I say what I'm doing, I'm one of the UN ambassadors who leads on the whole climate change and ocean change and biodiversity loss agenda. And I describe it as the road to hell that we are currently on.
Yeah,
and I have 4 grandchildren. And I am not satisfied that they are being consigned to hell in their lifetimes. And if you think that's an exaggeration, read or listen to what the Secretary General has said about what a 3-degree world is, and that's where we're still heading. I think the figure has come down to 2.7 now, but that's still an unlivable world for our grandchildren. So that's why I say I live in that continuity. Obviously, I recognize gender problems and youth problems and all the rest, but it's the continuity that matters to me, and it's the reason I'm not back in my home country of Fiji reading a novel under a coconut tree, which I could do if I didn't have grandchildren. So where are the opportunities for youth? Well, I think I just lost sound. No, I'm going. Where are the opportunities for youth? Well, opportunities are always there. You know, this world that we live in is just full of opportunities, or not, depending on what your attitude is and what your circumstances are. If you're living in Yemen, it'd be a hell of a lot harder than living in New York City in terms of finding good opportunities, for example. But there's always opportunity for a searching mind. And what I say to young people is, if I go into a fishery meeting, which I often have to do, and I address the top fishing people in the world. I'm not a fisheries expert, right? But I look at young people in the room who've got PhDs in fisheries and think, you should be up here at this table here, being the one that's talking about this, because you know so much more than me. And I happily give my seat to you. The other thing about that person, as well as being, because I'm not going to give my seat up to a youth advocate who knows nothing about fishing, but I will give my seat up to a young person who is suitably qualified, better than me, not hard to find. But the other thing I would say about giving that seat up to that person is the decision making that they're going to make at this top table. They're going to have to live with that. I won't be around to see the effects of that in 20 years' time, but they will be. And so, the seriousness with which they will make their decisions, again, it's a really good reason for young people to be at the top table. And just to round that off, in Lisbon at the UN Ocean Conference, we were at a youth event down on the beach, and the Secretary General of the United Nations said, the time has come, and he gave a kind of history, he's a former Prime Minister of Portugal and so on, he gave a history of what it's been like for young people. He saw this in his political career, where first of all they were nowhere, just go to school and shut up. And then there was the thing of, you must have a youth event. If you're having a serious global thing, make sure you've got a youth event. But they're out there somewhere. And if they were lucky, somebody was sent from that youth event to report to the plenary in the main room, right? He said those times are gone. Youth have to be in the main room from the beginning, contributing to the discussion and the outcome. Now, all I would add to that is that these international meetings that we have are member state meetings. That's how we organize ourselves as human beings into nation states, which are represented to make all the multilateral decisions which are made, and great ones. I'd be happy to describe what they are, but we haven't got time for that. But it's up to member states. Yeah. It's up to your countries to bring young people in their delegations to be part of those negotiations. We can't dictate that from the UN and say, country X, you haven't got any young people on your delegation, go and find one. We can't do that. But we can get the message out, hey, we need the voice of youth. Please include young people in your delegations. Yeah. So that's the central message.
Sorry to interrupt you. I think one of the key things that you talked about, bringing the youth delegations, if you look at the next COP meeting in the UAE, it was interesting. They just announced the leadership for the COP from the UAE side, and they appointed a youth champion.
That's right.
Which was a big shift, and I think it's long overdue. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to recognize also that we are at Davos, and I'm a global shaper, and that we are given the opportunity to be a part of this as young people across the world from the global shapers community to sort of be at these meetings and in these sort of sessions. But a little bit of a personal reflection for me is that even sort of being a part is like, you can join a party, but how much do you contribute to the fun of the party, right? And that's where I feel the role of the youth is very important in working on making sure that we're talking about our areas of passion. For instance, mine is the circular economy. Perhaps there are other people here who are interested in other aspects of the SDGs or other impact goals that we might have. And it's about being able to articulate, number one, what our position is as the youth on something, and also find ways to be taken seriously. And perhaps there's sort of notes to take from some of your experiences in boardrooms, in these sort of large discussions, on what it takes to be taken seriously, because that might help accelerate our impact, right? So maybe just back to you for a quick sort of,
But
yeah.
being taken seriously is what you're saying, not what your age is or what you look
Yes,
like or anything.
yeah.
There are lots of old people who make fools of themselves by what they're
We've seen
saying,
quite
and
a
they're
few.
not being taken
Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah.
right? Likewise, lots of young people do that. But the young person that comes in the room and says what's needed to be said is taken seriously. It's the ideas that matter in these meetings, not what you look like or what your age is.
Agreed. And I think that's important to point out, which is why I'm glad you said that. But I think what I was trying to get at, and maybe didn't come off well enough, but that's fine. We always have chances to do more. Was that you come with with a good idea to a table, but you're often not taken seriously enough to think that you have a good idea, right? As a young person, I've experienced that. I'll be honest.
I've experienced that as an old person.
Yeah. So how do we overcome something like this?
You just get a better idea.
Well,
And
I
that's
don't know.
one thing.
Yeah.
Get your idea better, but also there's a lot of politics involved with selling an
Exactly.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you want to chime in there.
Yeah, so I was actually on the UN panel for digital cooperation, which was organised by the Secretary General quite a few years ago now, and I think one of the things you've got to have, that was a year-long, sort of very political. Agree with you. The first thing to do is learn the politics, because I will say in the first few meetings I didn't quite understand the politics, even though I have grey hair, and also the other thing is you've got to be tenacious. If you believe in your idea. Maybe it's not get a better idea, maybe it's re-articulate the idea. Try to have bilaterals as well, if you can, if you're able to. If you're finding that your idea is not being received well, have bilaterals with the people, in particular, not the ones who are agreeing with you, but the people who are disagreeing with you are also the people to have the bilaterals with, because you might understand how you can bring your idea closer to them, or you may indeed sort of, through that work, expose your idea in a different and new way to them that they might engage with. But I would definitely say I have seen young people sort of just swatted aside.
Yeah.
I do agree that I have seen that. So, but tenacity. What is it? You fall down, you get back up again,
That's
right?
right.
Keep
That's
going.
something.
Don't give
Yeah.
up. Just because people don't listen, someone will listen. Keep going.
Yeah.
On the tenacity side, I mean, I agree, and it's not just in this situation. It happens in the boardroom or the C-suite of big companies or organizations all the time. Like my boss is the CEO and chairman of IBM. There's plenty of times I go in and tell him something, and he's like, right? And I do dye my hair gray, so I'm younger than I look. But there's plenty of times that he does that, right? And it's not always comfortable. But I got to step up and go, wait a minute, Arvind. This is why I'm saying it. This is why I believe what I believe. And sometimes he'll turn around and come back. And sometimes you just have to say, okay, I tried, and there's a reason it's not working, and I just got to get going. But I think building the alliances and figuring out the politics and talking to people and building your allies as you come forward with an idea, so you're not walking into a room of 10, 15, 20 people, whatever it is, and nobody's ever heard it before, and you're trying to get everybody to agree. That is crucial.
Yeah.
That is instrumental.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to reiterate the point of talking to people that disagree with you. It makes a huge difference to actually be able to go to someone and be like, why don't you think the same way?
Yeah.
Right? Or what can I do to change your mind in that sense? And I guess
Or be prepared to change your own mind too.
well,
Exactly,
fair
yeah.
enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Middle ground.
Yeah.
I used to work for one of the largest retailers in the world. And when they were getting ready to roll out their sustainability initiatives, they went to a series of NGOs and asked for input. And one of the NGOs came back and said, you know what? Here are the 10 things that you need to do. And they were not friendly towards this retailer. Here are the 10 things you need to do. And if you don't do all 10, we will not stand with you on the work you're doing. We will not endorse it. We took it in, we looked at it, and we went back to that NGO and we said, hey, 1 through 5 makes sense, 6 and 7 we can't do for these reasons, and 8, 9, and 10 are great. If you can't support us, you can't support us. But we got better because we engaged with you. And being willing to have those sorts of conversations and stand up for what you believe in and not change why you're there is really important.
Yeah. And I want to also recognize that we are in a space sort of that is not from the global north necessarily, or from sort of what we traditionally recognize as the, like you mentioned, if you're in Yemen, it may be difficult. In New York, it's easier. We are not in New York, right? At least I'm not from there. I live in India. I'm pretty sure a lot of you also live in other parts of the world where we don't have access to opportunities like this. But I think it's important to build them up. And maybe that's where the role of technology really also helps, right? In terms of opening up access to these arenas, to skills, to ideas and ways in which I want to say people not from the majority that we see all the time, I'm trying to be nice, tend to also find ways to then come to decision-making tables, or find ways to engage with people at decision-making levels. So maybe just a quick question to Jonathan on the skilling program that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Is this an opportunity that you also provide on the program, and where do you see sort of skills like this, or spaces being created for people from the global south or other parts?
It's a program that we're doing around the world.
Yeah.
I mean, IBM, we do business in 170 countries. We're not going to skill 30 million people by ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I just look at, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia alone, we've committed to skilling 100,000 people by 2030. And that's going to happen through NGOs, through multilaterals, who and governmental organizations who are going to give the opportunities. And that is happening around the world. So going to where, I'll borrow the adage of a famous hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, used to say, you can't skate to the puck, you have to skate to where the puck is going. We need to go where the youth are going, where they are going to be, and we need to meet them there and be creative, engaging how we do that, and how we offer it to them and give them the opportunities.
I'm going to make one comment as well. That we are at a really unique time in history, as you sort of mentioned. The digital economy has really, in my personal opinion, it's foundationally transforming our economic structure, our social structures, as you've already mentioned. And it's also reforming how we interact with our environment. It's given us these opportunities. So the one thing I would say to young people is, if you're finding yourself blocked out, don't be afraid to build it yourself, or give it a go, and
exactly.
and try and be, says generation transformation over there. So I think sometimes what we're looking at are very, very crystallized, very hard structures that are very hard to break into. And so sometimes building around the side starts to get some kind of thing going that makes all of us in our sort of traditional roles go, hang on, that's really cool. Why didn't we think of that?
Yeah.
I think we've been talking at this level, right?
Yeah.
But there's this level and there's that level, right?
Yeah.
And those other levels are equally important. And there's nothing to stop a young person going out and forming a beach cleanup thing, which has been done, of course, thousands of times in every country, and which is fantastic work, right? Or influencing their school or their family to stop eating beef, because beef is destroying the planet. This happened in my own family. My wife and I don't eat beef because of what our younger generation told us, that they didn't want the planet destroyed just because we liked hamburgers. So we stopped. That was when we were living in New York. That was about 7 years ago now. I haven't touched this stuff since then. Things like that, where when we have family gatherings now, I'm still a meat eater, a fish eater, but half the extended family seems to be vegan now, all the young ones. And this is filtering up because we're seeing our young ones all being vegans or vegetarians. We're starting to eat less and less meat ourselves, the older generation. So what I'm saying is that young people can be huge agents for change within whatever sphere they're in, be it family, be it school, be it community.
I agree, and I think one of the things I'd like to sort of highlight and maybe get some remarks from you, because I'm also conscious of time and I want to see if there's any questions from everybody here for the panel. But I think the youth are very ingenious in being able to find solutions and look at problems in a way that I don't think that a lot of people have looked at them before, right? There's so many, at least in India where I come from, there's thousands and thousands of youth innovators that have solutions that can solve real problems for today. They're slowly starting to be recognized. Of course, there's challenges with that as well in terms of VC funding and finding the right platform. I mean, everybody wants money, but yeah, I think the question is, if it's a good solution and if it's a good idea, it does deserve a chance. But where and how, and this is an idea I'm throwing out there for the panel, is there a way we can actually create a platform for these youth solutions and these youth ideas to be showcased to a larger audience? And how do we sort of amplify that? I'm looking at you, Stark.
You're looking at me.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
yeah, sorry.
Well, I think there are two ways. You're already part of the global Shaper
Right.
community, right? So you could, or you mean
And
within
we're
that
in
role,
the Youth Majlis.
and we're in
Yeah.
the Youth Majlis. You could reach out to these initiatives and say, actually, we would like to showcase some of the fantastic ideas. Take the initiative and ask them to do that. I'm sure the World Economic Forum have previously done similar things. But again, using digital tools, you could actually probably, if you can work out a cool marketing campaign, and IBM can probably help with those kind of things, you could probably actually grow it virally. And one of the things that, I work a lot in blockchain and cryptocurrencies as well, and one of the problems that we have at the moment is everyone's got a solution for everything. And so one of the things for that platform to do would be to help people say, well, actually, this idea really is going to make a change. How do you measure the impact that these ideas are going to have, and how do you help the people who've had those ideas pick them up and scale them?
Yeah.
I think there's always been a lot of, hey, look at these great ideas, but then,
There's
helping
no follow through.
them, helping them scale is the
Yeah.
is the thing we need,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. I don't know if you guys have some other.
I agree. I think the trick is across cultures and across countries, there's different platforms, right? Somebody might say you could create something on Twitter or Facebook or Snap, but that doesn't apply everywhere. Then you're missing everybody in China who's on WeChat,
Yeah.
right? So it's a challenge, but I think that there can be regional or country specific areas. And I think a lot of leaders, I would say, in countries are already committed to this kind of thing. So I think it's grabbing onto what they're doing. I mean, His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, he's brought this Majlis together. And I know from my time that I continually am in the kingdom, his commitment to the youth. And building on that, there's an opportunity. There are other initiatives like it. So I think it's a combination. Because unfortunately, most things don't go viral by themselves.
That's the problem.
Today.
Like you need a bit of backing. You need some thought and idea into getting the things to go viral.
You need some cash to
Yeah.
Yeah.
to
Need a
kick
bit
I
it
of
told
off.
you,
Yeah.
everybody needs money, but there's
Yeah.
clearly not enough going around.
Trust me, a lot
Yeah.
of people see me as a big
Yeah.
piggy bank.
Yeah. And what about you, Peter? What are your ideas here?
Well, look, I don't think everybody can be famous and successful, but some will be. I mean, the Beatles were just young guys in their 20s when they broke through. There was thousands of other bands at the time, but somebody has to emerge as the one who's sort of influencing people and going on to those new levels. A lot of us do our best work when we're in our 20s. I myself probably did my best work when I was in my early 20s. I have a football stadium named after me in my country. I was 25 when I left that district and went off to do my postgraduate work, and found from a newspaper report that they'd named this park after me, right? Because I'd spent all my weekends just turning a rice paddy into 2 football fields. It's now one of the top 5 football grounds in my country. I look back on that and say, well, if I was older, I wouldn't have done that. I would have valued my weekends more than going down there and doing that. So, and I see a lot of young people who I think, well, what are you going to be doing when you're 50 or so? Because you're doing such fantastic things now as a young person. And some of them, maybe that's the best thing they're ever going to do when they're in their 20s. I have a very good friend, a young French woman, who was in her early 20s when she started the Ocean Climate Nexus. And it became very quickly the main global organization for getting attention on the fact that you can't talk about climate without talking about ocean, and vice versa, right? It was her organization in France, and all the people in that organization were in their 20s. And just the other day, she turned 30 after about 8 years of solid work on this. And I was just saying, oh, God, I can't use you as an example anymore. But there I go, I just have. So what I'm saying is, you know, maybe your best years in terms of achievement and your gift to humanity and gift to nature, more importantly, will be done when you're in your early 20s. And don't wait around for somebody to give you the opportunity, just take it.
Take it, yeah, grab the opportunity. I really like that, and it reminds me of something someone said to me in the morning. They were like, oh, all of you young people are sort of sitting on your phones and looking at TikTok and Instagram all the time. And I was like, no, maybe not. I'm looking at good content at some level about things that people are doing. Well, personally not me, but young people, other young people. And I feel like there is an opportunity to also leverage that interest that young people have in climate solutions, in technology, to merge those interests and then find ways to see how we can all work towards achieving these clearly ambitious targets. Sure, we might be a couple years late. I don't think we're going to achieve them by 2030, personal opinion. Maybe 2035. But I feel like the youth do have a role to play. And with that, I want to sort of open this up to the audience to see if there's any questions on what you feel this panel has talked about and where you feel like you have a role to play, or anything else you want to talk about. Go for it. You want to just tell us your name as well before?
Yeah, my name's Daniel. Yep. Oh, sorry. Yep, my name's Daniel. I don't know, should I mention what I do?
Go for it. Yeah.
That'd be good. I have a creative team. We worked on, I'm from Ukraine, we worked on a Ukraine nation branding project. And right now we're working with several other countries, so I'm probably one of the people, as you said, who are doing something in their 20s. I hope that's not the best I can do. I hope I can do better. But we'll see. My question is, as a person who works mostly in the creative field with designs, with marketing, with things that maybe aren't to some people as valuable as actual applicable skills as, like, being a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. Working in the creative field, what do you think we as a team could be doing for sustainability, for contributing to the SDGs? What would be a good path to go to contribute from this perspective?
There's a lot. I just want to say before that, sorry, I know moderators shouldn't do this, but I'm an Indian child that didn't do the engineering degree or the medical degree, and I think it's fine. Don't worry about it. But yes, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, actually, there's a huge amount of work being done by designers, at least in the academic space, looking at how they can help improve the climate response. So I would definitely be looking into some of those things. The design skills are profoundly useful in rethinking certain things. So if there's, certain transitions that need to be rethought, or certain systems that need to be rethought, there are very useful things to focus on, and people actually pay you for that as well, by the way. It's not just a pro bono thing. And finally, I think I mentioned before that what we're facing are wicked problems, right? So what we need to do is bring multiple disciplines together to try and solve these. And quite frankly, humanity has not done this before effectively. And some of the design skills that you have in terms of helping complex problems, people discuss complex problems, could be very valuable.
I think there's a ton to be done, because I think you gotta, the creativity is what's needed to help draw more people in. You get passionate about something and you work on that, and I'm looking at it not from a more of a product design, but that could play a role as well. But if you look at just from the creativity side of it, that's what's going to draw more people in. That's what's going to give you a better shot of having something go viral and get more people engaged and aware about topics. So I think there's a lot to do, a lot.
Peter?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, the creative community, the muse comes and goes for the creative community, and the muse is often kindest to the young, if you look at whether it's art or music. And, you know, as an older person, you hope it still stays with you. I'm a writer myself. So, look, I'll give an example. You know, you mentioned the SDGs, we're not going to get there by 2030. Well, a friend of mine who's a very famous film director, Richard Curtis, he's run the project Everyone from the beginning of the SDGs. He's been the sort of creative side behind how we sell them globally. And earlier this week, he did a fantastic presentation where basically, you know, it accepts the fact that we're lagging badly. So, but he put it in a sports analogy one, and he's done a really nice video which relates the SDGs to a sporting team, and has Ted Lasso in it with, you know, Believe and all that stuff. And the tagline is basically, we're at half time and we're behind, but everybody knows you win the game in the second half. So, you know, it all starts here. And, you know, that's the sort of creativity in action that bureaucrats just could not come up with that kind of attitude. But he can, and sells it and gives us a whole new line of energy. You know, oh my God, yeah, we're going to win this game. Yeah, Ted Lasso, Believe.
Yeah. No, creativity has a really important role to play, because I think artists and anybody really that has a creative, more left side of the brain sort of use, they tend to see things differently, and I think it's important to have different perspectives, right? Because that's when you have diversities of voices, but you also have the ability to look at something and show someone a new way of thinking about it. And that makes a huge difference. So I would say that take all of this in and maybe, you know, find a way to engage a bit more on ways to tap into that creativity. I want to check if there's any other questions. Yes. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Varsha Jagdari, and the topic today really appeals to me on a number of levels. First, I'm in the tech space as well, Katie, so in the decentralized technology space, and I can tell you there is a massive dearth of talent, of tech talent especially, and as a tech company, we're constantly looking at upskilling not just our own employees, but others in order to address this dearth. But also as a mother to two young kids, right? I look around me whenever I take pause to think about what is this world I'm living for my kids or their kids. It does make me feel that it's really important to take some action. And we spoke about youth today, but I feel it starts much younger, right? It starts at the age that my kids are, or my kids were even 5 years ago, where they need to be educated at that stage about what's happening around. I think by not keeping kids informed about what's happening in the world right now, we are actually not giving them the opportunity to think about it. We are taking away the chance for these kids to think about what their future is going to hold and how they can affect it by doing things even today. So yeah, I just wanted to make the point about how do you guys think about starting this level of education at a really young age and getting kids to start thinking about today's problems.
Creating the right habits from a very young age. You know, my granddaughter, the youngest one, has lived in my house since the day she was born. She's now about 2.5. I just love watching her eat seaweed, right? And when I was her age, when we were all kids that age, we were given boiled sugar, right? The lollies. Lollies, that's what kids ate for generations, right? You want to shut a kid up, give them a lolly. Just boiled sugar. Now, when she sits at the table and she's fidgeting and all the rest, I say, do you want some seaweed? Yeah. So I give her the seaweed and she munches it happily. You know, I'm talking about the nori, you know, what you wrap around.
Yeah.
And she sits there and it's got a lovely umami, and kids like that. So here, you know, from a young age, she's learning sugar is not the answer. Don't eat any sugar, actually. You know, obviously she's not getting any beef or anything like that. She'll probably be a vegetarian by choice. But, you know, start them off young, and all those bad habits in life that we had just won't be there when they grow up. Yeah. They won't aspire, for example, to own a car. I mean, we all, when we were growing up, the main thing we wanted was, you know, when can I get my first car? And what kind of car? Especially being boys, you know, we had these car obsessions. Now, I haven't owned a car for 10 years, And it just seems absurd to me that human beings should own cars and drive around and look outside the window.
Yeah.
Just burning CO2.
Yeah.
I mean, just producing CO2 in traffic jams. You see that in every city in the world.
I agree.
That human madness is still there. Just from a young age, teach the kids, use public transport. And never go on anything that emits greenhouse gas emissions.
True.
Yeah, just one thought, because I think maybe you're touching on a point that I've been thinking about a lot myself, which is we need to rethink education fundamentally. Because, you know, when I look at the university system, the high school system, and it's funny, you go through the whole thing and you're just going through it like, because that's what you're supposed to do as a child, right? You go through it, and it's only when I've been thinking about the educational practice I'm imposing on other people that it sort of struck me, actually, our entire education system is built off the idea of the Industrial Revolution. That you're training children for reading, writing, arithmetic, to go into a factory to build stuff, right? You know, or, you know, contribute to a certain type of economy. And so I think what we need to do is engage in rethinking what education actually should be.
Yeah.
And the SDGs, I think, should be placed at the core of a lot of that activity. So my high school, you can probably hear I'm Australian. One of the things that they actively made sure that we did, and I think it was, helped me over my life in terms of sustainable development, was send us away for about 6 weeks to see how the Aboriginal Australians are custodians of the land rather than abusers of the land. So they have an incredibly strong idea of stewardship rather than ownership, which I think, if we can put some of these things, I mean, every nation in the world probably has some of that, and if we can embed that into the education system, I think we'll slowly but surely, these structures that we're talking about, I think they'll start cracking.
Yeah, I just, in the interest of time, want to ask that we merge this with maybe like closing responses, unless someone has another burning question. But if we could, in a few sentences, maybe 30 to 45 seconds, what are your 2 key sort of ideas that you want to leave young people with? One, from the perspective of how they could contribute to actually making a difference to achieving the SDGs, and 2, how would you invite them to partake with you or partner with you or your affiliates to actually go ahead and engage on their journeys? Do you want to go ahead?
Okay, 30 seconds. Look, firstly, I would like them, and I know it's hard in an urbanized world, increasingly urbanizing world, but they have to learn to live their lives in harmony with nature. Number one, just overriding principle. Human life is not the main thing. Life is the main thing, right? So live in harmony with nature. In terms of how they can help me in my work, just go to SDG 14 and see what's there. Every one of the targets you can do in your own home.
That's right.
Don't eat illegal fish. Find out if the fish that it's coming to is legal, for example. Don't pollute, because anything you throw away is going to end up in the sea eventually. So just have a look at the targets and you'll see that you can do a lot.
That's right. Thank you. And thank you for highlighting that each SDG also has specific targets, which are very easy and very nice and well thought out.
Yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to plug that. Go ahead, John.
For me, it's take advantage of what's out there. We've got a bunch of stuff out there that's available for people to learn and get the skills to contribute, and others do as well. And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't quote the late Whitney Houston and just say, I believe the children are our future.
That's
Teach them
right.
well and let them lead the way.
Whitney knows all. Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky and now Whitney. Yeah, man,
The 2 W's.
I'm impressed.
I'm going across the street to see what Will I Am, so there'll be more later.
I mean, well, I'm an Australian, so excuse my language, but for young people, don't be afraid to call bullshit on old people. Excuse me. If you think that someone is saying something incorrect, and just because they've got a stature, please do feel free to do that. Secondly, we offer internships. So if anyone would like to come do an internship, they're mostly in computer science or design, actually, or in economics. But those internships are available, and everything I do is about sustainability and the application of digital to solve that. So I'm interested to hear from anyone.
Thank you. And with that, I think we're going to call this to a close. And
What
thank
about your two?
Yeah, what
Oh,
about
my
you?
two.
Yeah.
What am I two? Well, my first one is that I encourage everybody to look up the Global Shapers community, think about joining. Um, and my second is that if you have questions, if you want help, if you want to collaborate, I'm always here. You can reach out to me. I love talking to people. I love meeting new people. And even if there's no way to find a way to actually work together, I'll probably find a way to connect you to someone that can work with you. Yeah, I call myself an orchestrator, and I love that. Yeah. So, thank you so much for
Thank
making
you.
the
Thank
time.
you.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Majlis, for having us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Super.
Very good.
Okay.